Hi, welcome back. Today I am here with my favorite books that I read in 2018. I have 18 books to share with you today. This is not to be confused with my best of 2018 video, which I will link up above if you guys want to go check it out. In that video, I go through my favorite books published in 2018 in a variety of categories, but today I want to share with you my 18 favorite books that I read this year, regardless of when they were published. So for those of you who don't know, I've developed a way of rating books where, for my own purposes, on my spreadsheet, the books that for me go above and beyond, that are favorites of the year, get 6 stars. And this year, 18 books got 6 stars. I read about 300 books this year, so that's probably part of why there are so many, but also I read some really fantastic books, so I'm really excited to share them with you. These are in no particular order. Should I put them in an order? These are in no particular order in terms of favoriteness, but just to make it easier for me, for my own purposes, I'm going to divide these up into some sections. First, I thought I would share the 2 nonfiction books that made it onto my favorites of the year list. The first one was actually published in 2018. This is Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger by Soraya Chemaly. I have a full review of this book. If you guys want to go check it out, I can link it up above. But yeah, I love this. I thought it was very timely. I thought it was really powerful, and I just think everyone should go read it. It's fantastic, and I think the title kind of says it all. The other nonfiction that made my favorites of the year list is a 2017 release. This is We Were 8 Years in Power by Ta-Nehisi. Love this so much. We actually originally had it from the library. My husband and I read this together over the course of about a month and then decided we wanted to own it and have it on our bookshelves. Ta-Nehisi has been writing for The Atlantic for a long time, and he is probably one of the preeminent thinkers in America today on race and race relations in the US. This book is a collection of 8 of his articles in The Atlantic, one for each year of Obama's presidency, interspersed with brief essays that he's written about his thoughts on that time period and on kind of his thinking now. And this is such a powerful book. I think this should be required reading. It's intense, but it's really, really good. Really, this sort of sums up what my year has been about in a lot of ways, and some of my favorite themes is we've got feminism and race in America, like 2 of my favorite things to read and talk about. So those are the 2 books that made my favorites of the year list for nonfiction this year. Then I actually have 3 YA debut novels that made my favorites of the year, favorite books that I read this year. One thing I should say, honorable mention, goes to Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I didn't read it this year, so I didn't put it on the list. I actually read an arc of it in 2017, but it did come out this year, and it was a favorite for me, so you could probably add that on. It's also a debut YA novel, but the other ones that I want to talk about are first The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. Love this. It is not for everyone. It's kind of a polarizing novel, but I adored it. The main character is an unlikable female character, which I really like. This is also a bit of a genre-bending book. It starts out as urban fantasy and then becomes a portal fantasy, which not everybody loves, but I love it. I thought it was dark and atmospheric and powerful. Really enjoyed this one. Then I have a YA contemporary. This is Anger is a Gift by Marco Shiro. It's another debut novel, and again, I loved it. It's an intense book. Shocker, it deals with some of the same issues. It is set in Oakland, and it is an Own Voices novel about a black gay teen boy falling in love for the first time and dealing with racism and institutionalized police brutality. So yeah, not a light read, but a really, really good one. And the final debut novel that made my favorite books of the year is Sweet Black Waves by Kristina Perez. I keep talking about this because I keep hoping that like more people will pick it up and read it because I loved it so much, and I think it's like one of the most underhyped books this year. This is a feminist retelling of Tristan and Isolde from the perspective of Branwen, Isolde's lady's maid. It is dark and atmospheric and witchy and really feminist and amazing. I loved it and can't wait to read on in the series. This year I also discovered some favorite new authors, and some of their books made it on this list. One of them, actually both of her books that were published this year that I read made it on the list, and that is Claire Legrand. So I have both Furyborn and Sawkill Girls on my favorite books I read in 2018 list. Furyborn is a new adult epic fantasy with some feminist elements to it and diversity. I loved it. This is another one that for some reason not everybody likes, and I don't really know why, because I absolutely adored it. but it's not everybody's cup of tea for whatever reason. Maybe because it's a dual timeline and you sort of start the book knowing what happens, but not really. It is like kind of a character-driven book, so if you don't like that, maybe you wouldn't be into it. I don't really know what people's problem with it is, but I absolutely loved it. Then there's also her contemporary feminist horror book, Sawkill Girls, which, oh my god, is so good. Can everybody please go out and read this? My pitch for this is it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Stranger Things, except way creepier, super feminist, and really queer. Yeah. Need I say more? I have like a complete review up on this and probably this. I don't know. You know, I tend to like to review my favorite books because I have stuff to say. So yeah. New favorite author, Claire Legrand is now an auto-buy author for me, and I'm really happy that I discovered her this year. Another new favorite author managed to get one book on my favorites of the year list with 6 stars. Although in general I'm loving his writing. This is Lifel1k by Jay Kristoff. This is the first in his new YA sci-fi series. The thing I love is that his writing is so smart and so layered. Like, you can read and reread and analyze his books, which I am really a fan of. I like people who write that way. There's Easter eggs, there's references. You don't have to, you can just read the story without that, but if you want to dissect it, there's a lot to dissect. Also, he writes really, really good female characters, and not a lot of male authors can. He writes really good female characters. So yeah, anyway, Jay Kristoff is fantastic, and I loved Lifel1k, so this one ended up on my favorites of the year list. Another new favorite author, because there's actually a lot of these are like new to me authors, to be perfectly honest. Another new favorite author that I finally discovered this year is Pierce Brown. Yes, that is right. The author of Red Rising and Golden Sun, both of which got 6 stars. Morningstar got 4.5 stars. I liked it a lot, but not as much as Red Rising and Golden Sun. So 2 out of 3 books in the trilogy made my favorites of the year list. This is sci-fi that's inspired by Rome, and it's really good, and I love the characters and I love the world building, and these 2 books in particular. Morningstar, like, there were some pacing issues with it for me, but I thought both of these were just like so freaking good. Absolutely adore it, and I'm really excited to get to Iron Gold. I like needed a minute after that ending. Like, it is a really good ending. I needed a minute, so yeah. But Pierce Brown is another new favorite author that I will probably like pretty much buy whatever he writes at this point. Another author that I finally picked up this year and now love is Roxane Gay, and her book of short stories, Ayiti, made my favorites list. It's like a small but beautiful little collection of short stories about Haitians in diaspora, and it's just such a powerful book. It's a book about identity and trauma, and like, oh my god, it's so good. It made me cry, which very few books make me cry. I loved it. I love her writing, so I've now read this. I've also read one of her nonfiction books, Hunger, and I think it's like cemented her as a favorite author of mine, but this is the one that got 6 stars for me and made it on this list. This year, I also discovered Seanan McGuire, and I read Every Heart a Doorway. This is the first book in the Wayward Children series. As a whole, I really love the series, but this first book in particular got 6 stars from me. It just does so many interesting things. I mean, people talk a lot about the diversity in these books, and there is a lot of diversity. It also asks this question that I always asked growing up as a big fan of the Chronicles of Narnia is, what happens to them when they come back? Like, how do they cope with being back in the real world? And in this series, there is a school for children returned from other alternate worlds who are dealing with things. There's also a murder mystery in the story. It's a really short little book, but it's powerful, and I loved it. Okay, and then another one that made a new favorite author for me, which means I've read more than one of his books and really, really loved them. This is Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Thank you, Leanna from Leanna's Library, for convincing me to read this. Like, I also have the big special edition, but this was easier to pick up, so I thought I would just grab this. But guys, this book is so good. It's another one where the writing is so smart and layered and detailed. The world building is fantastic. It's lyrical. I love Kvothe as a character. It's another one that's like very character driven and meandering, and you just have to like fall into the world. Not everybody loves that. I love it. I love it so much. I know, so I read this early in the year, and I keep wanting to pick up the next book, and I keep putting it off. I think because I loved this so much, and I know the 3rd book's not out yet, and I'm like nervous, but I just need to do it, and then I can reread it. Yeah, so Name of the Wind. Patrick Rothfuss is like brilliant. Love, love, love. Hopefully we'll get a book 3 soon. I did read, the other thing I read by him this year was the novella, which I also really liked. what is it, the Slow Regard of Silent Things. It's a spin-off novella. It's fantastic. Let's talk about my most recent 6-star read. This was actually something I read in November. It is Written and Read by Anne Bishop. Guys, I loved this book so much. It was like my perfect cozy book, and I cannot wait to continue on with the series in 2019. I now own all of them thanks to the wonderful Brandy over Brandy Ginny's bookshelf. She bought me like 3 of the books that I was missing, so I'm really excited to finish with the series. But it is, what would you call this, like paranormal urban fantasy sort of. It's another one that's very character driven. So I like these. I don't mind these like super slow character driven books when they're written well. And this is definitely one of them. I love, love, love the main character. I like the world a lot. It's just, everything about this was wonderful to me. It is set in a world where basically humans are not the top of the food chain. There's the others that basically let humans continue to live because they view them as prey, but also as sources of interesting inventions. The others can take a variety of forms, so some of them are werewolves or vampires or elementals or other sorts of shapeshifters. The main character, Meg, is a human young woman who is running away from something, and she takes a job as the human liaison for a group of the others, where she basically accepts deliveries for them and delivers their mail, which doesn't sound super interesting, but there's political intrigue and stuff going on. And then also she's just this, like, the most wonderful, sweet character, and is the perfect foil for these like gruff others characters. It's just great. I loved it. I can't wait to continue on with the series. All right, we're getting there, guys. The next 2 books are part of the same series. I read book 1 late last year and then picked up the second 2 books early in the year. This is The Obelisk Gate and The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisen, books 2 and 3 in the Broken Earth trilogy. So the 5th season is book 1. This is a blend of adult science fiction and fantasy, and it's so good. She's a genius, and I really want to read more from her. I love these. I will want to reread them, and I originally read them all from my library. All 3 of them are amazing, and then I wanted to own them, and I actually went and got them signed. I went to a signing. Like, really bummed this got like bent children. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's really exciting. They're all signed, which is really cool. I own the whole trilogy now, and they're beautiful. They're really intense. And it's written in second person, which takes a while to get into, but once you get into it, like, the writing is so good, and she explores a lot of interesting themes: oppression and resistance and prejudice and motherhood and like so many things. They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. So yeah, both of these, and the other one would have made the list too if I'd read it this year, but yeah, the whole trilogy is fantastic. Also, this year I read a couple of books that were poetry, which is not something that I've really read much of in the past or have continued to read very much of, but one thing that I really loved was Fierce Fairytales by Nikita Gill. And number one, I just think this is a beautiful book. It's got all these illustrations from the author, but I just loved everything about it. I love retellings, and I love what she did here. It's basically poetry retelling all of the classic fairy tales, but with a feminist twist to it, and I just thought this was so powerful and explores a lot of really interesting themes, and yeah, I really liked it. I'm not an expert on poetry, but I loved it, so there you go. The final book that got 6 stars for me this year is a book that's part of one of my favorite YA fantasy series. This is Sightwitch by Susan Dennard. I just love this series, and I really love this book. A lot of people, I think, aren't reading it. It is a prequel, but it's actually pretty integral to the way that you read the series, and I actually recommend considering it as part of the series. My friend Mara at Books Like Whoa says that she thinks you should just read it first, and the rest of the series will make a lot more sense. And I could see that. It does explain a lot of things and link a lot of stuff. I love all the Easter eggs, and after I read this, went back and reread the rest of the series again and got so much more out of it on a second read. I love books that you can read again and again and dissect, and this is one of those series. Epic fantasy with multiple perspectives. This book in particular is the backstory of a side character that we meet in the main books in the series, but it ties into so many things, and it's brilliant. It's really cool. Also, this is actually told in mixed media format, so there's like journal entries and notes on different documents, and so it's just like really fun to read from that perspective as well. But yeah, I love this. Okay, that is it. So guys, those are my 18 favorite books that I read in 2018 out of like 300. So yeah, I'm really excited about all of these. Talk to me in the comments down below, any of your thoughts or feelings about any of the books that I mentioned today. And for your question of the day, tell me what books made your list of favorites that you read in 2018. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.